Hi everyone, Natalie here, Only One United, back again, our favourite time of the year. Bit ill, unfortunately, this time, but I'm here with Graham Falk, great guy. Go and check out his article. We've linked it on our Twitter and Instagram, but we're just going to get into it, transfer news. But Graham, thanks for joining us. Let people know about yourself and sort of about how I reached out to you to do
Sure.
this.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. So from a perspective of myself, I've been covering women's football since about 2017-ish. I officially don't cover it too often, but then I've recently been helping with National World and their Manchester site. So I've been lucky enough to cover Manchester United for about since I would say maybe September. So I've covered them regularly, and I think I said to you either privately or on Twitter, I'm starting to gain a little bit of affection because of the games I'm going to. So delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. That's what we're here. He likes your jacket. Yeah, I'm guessing you know, John.
I do.
Yeah. No, I just want to get into it then, Graham, if that's all right.
Yep. Why not?
You did an article, didn't you? And I feel that's why I sort of reached out to you and
Mm-hmm.
mentioned 5 names. And I think a name that had been mentioned before was Justine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I can't say her name, and she's
Same.
from Reading. But I've been told that that's probably not happening, and I know that you've probably heard the same. So just what's your thoughts on that so far?
So I think first and foremost, when I put the article out, I was maybe a bit cheeky with it. Some of them were suggestions from myself that I've got no links to it. Some very much did have a link, which is why I said maybe should I could. She was very much more like a could, and that was based on, I think it was, and forgive me to the journalist, but a Swedish, very reputable journalist mentioned it in the, I think it was around sort of August, September time, that there was an interest in the summer and something could happen in the January. That sort of picked up with like random rumors on Twitter, which you never know what to believe with Twitter, do you? Just anyone can put anything really. But as far as I'm aware, and I think Marc's confirmed it, I wasn't there during that particular post-match, but I think he confirmed it to Louise Wilkes. Again, I think I mentioned her the other day, fantastic journalist, covers United and City for Reach in the Manchester Evening News. She asked him straight out about the situation with Justine, I think it's Van Havermate, is the correct pronunciation. He pretty much said no, but my understanding of the reason the links were so strong for so many months is I think there was a slight interest there in the summer. To my knowledge, there was, but it was weak. And I think, as most players do, especially if they're playing in the lower echelons of the WSL, get told Manchester United might have an interest, you naturally want your agent to make that happen. I think she was very interested in the move, as you would be. Me personally, I didn't understand where she would have fitted into the team or where she would have improved it, even as a squad. And I think that was maybe a little bit more pushed by player/agent, but Skinner's pretty much said, without naming the name, not interested.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that Skinner said it. I was sort of told the same directly that, yeah, it's just, I think Vicky said it here, working overtime agent. And I mean, that's what you expect, isn't it? You do expect that.
That's their
Agents
job.
ain't doing the jobs. This is what it is. It's a lot of people have had a go at me, Graham, and for these kind of transfer things, because you do hear names and,
Yeah.
as a journalist, you obviously write about it and it happens, and then obviously I think it was Amanda who put it out, and obviously it's just the agent trying to put it out, get that interest, and we've had interaction with the fans saying that she's a good player. Of course she is, but I think Lanzell sort of said it's not an upgrade on what we have. So yeah,
I agree.
with it. Yeah,
And you're totally right about agents as well, Nat. I think that is, naturally their job, and much like I have a job, you have a job. We all have functions that we have to do and enjoy. And I think with agents, naturally they want to look after their clients, and if there's even a slight weak link or a slight weak interest with a club like Manchester United, who's obviously on the up in and around title spots, talking about Champions League at the end of the season, she's coming up to 30. That's a dream move, and maybe one of her final moves where she can, hope to go to a club like that. So I understand why it was pushed, and I think she did have a very good Euros. I actually managed to see Belgium during the Euros. I think a few people might have done because obviously they played at LSV, and she's got something. But I just think where Manchester United are going, she's probably not the right signing. You never know. If she puts on a red shirt, I'm sure everyone will back her and stuff like that if it was to happen. But she plays like Tooney's position, and if Vilda can't get in past Tooney at the moment. How's she going to get in? So it seemed a strange link to me, and I'm not really surprised Marc's shot it down.
Yeah, no, I mean, people are saying use for better deals. People are saying a new for Woso, agent talk. But listen, the thing's growing. Shows our status is building. Yeah, 100%. I mean, Amy's just talks about something we're positioned to go for as a priority. And another position you did mention, and I know it for a fact, in that I sort of got a good feeling from a little chat that I got on the Sunday, was that Hannah Vijek, I hope I've said her name right, 19-year-old fullback from BK Hacken. That is a position that I think Marc's also talked about. He's looking at fullbacks. From Martin, there was, she's a good player, etc. So that is, I think, where they are looking. I've also heard Chelsea are looking, that kind of thing. So for me, if Chelsea are looking, we know we need fullbacks. Playing in Champions League. I know that Hacken aren't playing there anymore. But I know Hacken are maybe not looking to sell because they've had a few good players go out the door. Someone said here earlier, please deplete BK Hacken. They are club as plastic as Man City. No, banter here. But no, I know that there was a bit of talk in the summer from Hacken that they don't want to be that kind of perceived as that kind of selling club, but she has good experience. People are saying for someone who's 19, fullback makes complete sense. I mean, where do you see that? I see fullback as a priority.
I do.
And she will push Hannah, I think, definitely. I think she's got an extra year though, so we'll have to pay. What do you think? Do you think that one will happen? Obviously, it's the window's not even open yet, but
yeah, I mean,
going for, isn't it?
There's no smoke without fire, and from my perspective, I would very rarely put something out, even if I've had someone relatively concrete tell me. I like to get 2 or 3 people giving me that information and really solid information before I even consider it. And Hannah was one where a few people mentioned it to me as opposed to me even have to look for it. So you kind of look at her ability, you look at her experience for her age. It's really good. And I think the problem Manchester United have, I think Hannah's had a fantastic season. I think outside of Manchester United, it's probably gone sort of away from the radar. I think people haven't realised how good she's been consistently. For me, when the games I've been to, which have been a fair few now, she's been 7 out of 10 consistently, at the very least, if not higher. And I think Ona for me, at the moment, the best right back in Europe, and it's no surprise that she's linked with the club she's linked to. But outside of that, I mean, I was at the Durham game, and I think Thor was playing obviously at right back, I think, that night, or left back, and she didn't look comfortable with us. I don't think she's a fullback. And there's talk of obviously you could play Laetitia there as well, but I said the other day with this, for me, the way that Marc Skinner works, he's got an idea in his mind of exactly what the team should be doing. And I think no manager, even if it's not Marc, to be honest, wants to move around their centre-half partnership, especially when it's been playing as well as Laetitia and Millie Turner. And I would be really surprised if he was happy to go into the second half of the season with his only real true fullback cover as Laetitia, meaning he has to change things around. For me, I know he's played Thor there, but not for me. For me, she's a centre half, not a fullback. And I think for me, Hannah would make total sense, because you having to convince a player to come to Manchester United isn't hard. Having to convince any player to come to a team and say, well, you're going to be back up to Hannah and Ona is maybe a little bit harder. If you'd gone to a 19-year-old with bags of experience for her age, potential, and what she can do, it doesn't surprise me that Manchester United are interested in that kind of player, because that's someone you can sell a project to, not just, well, you're going to get in the team straight away. Because we'll touch on another player really quickly that I put in the article, which was Sarah Miller, and that was a total suggestion. I've heard nothing of that. That was a case of Marc signed her before for Birmingham, I believe. She's got decent stats. Is that another option from a WSL team? And obviously that's quite a hard sell, probably even for her. If you want to go to Manchester United, yeah, big move, but she's playing every week for Aston Villa. She's not young, but you do need fullback cover at the very least. And then if, God forbid, I really hope that doesn't happen, but say Ona goes, I don't think she will, not January. But say she does, you don't have a right back. And Hannah's contract does have an extension, so you'd hope that one's going to be okay, even though it ends at the end of the season. But you need cover for me. And And for me, Hannah would make total sense. The only thing I would say with that is I've heard it's quite a weak interest in comparison to the other clubs, which is a bit of a concern. But I'd be surprised if Man United have got only the one fullback lined up. Let's just hope that it's of the same quality or of the same nature. But there's interest there, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, people are saying, I don't know if this is a name that you've heard of, Emma Ramirez, and that's a name that I heard linked in the summer, kind of how strong it was, or whether it's Barca trying to push her as part of the honour deal. I don't know, but she's 20. She's not honour, but she's very good at Real Sociedad. Do you know anything about that name, or do you think that would be a name they would look at?
Not something I've come up on, not something I've heard of in terms of this window, but regarding the move, it would make sense. But if I was Marc Skinner in Manchester United, I would block Barcelona's number for at least 6 months and tell owner to do exactly the same. But I think that's the market they need to be in. I think they need to be in a market where they're bringing in someone, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, where you can sell a project, which at the moment Manchester United is, but it's an exciting project because it can go in towards winning titles, getting in the Champions League, and say, look, you're going to be competing with two of the best fullbacks in the league, but you'll be the first choice after that. I would be surprised if they're not looking at someone who can play right and left. I know they're sparse, but that would save a bit of money if you could buy one that could cover both.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Vic's is saying here, when's a contract up for Hannah Vijek? And I think she's in her last year now.
I believe so. I believe that's correct. I believe the contract's up at the end of this season or at the end of their current season, I think.
Yeah. So we'd have to pay for it. I mean, what do you think of Man United? Because they did make a few paid transfers, Maya, Paris, Grace, and we'll talk about Grace. But they seem to, that's the avenue that they're going to go down now. I mean, what do you think? Because, this is Polly's first real transfer window. She's going to want to make an impact. She's going to want to, show that she can mix it and bring in quality players. What do you think that they are spending money now? Because I think for me they have to, don't they, really?
I think it's an interesting job, Manchester United, across the board. I think Mark's job, I think Polly's job's interesting because historically, obviously we all watch men's football as well. I certainly do. I'm sure you do as well, Nat. And Manchester United, I was born in 1986. They're arguably the biggest club in England. And with that comes expectation, and with that comes expectation of success. Even if the club was only formed in 2017-18, doesn't really matter. That's what you want. You want a success. And they have grown fast. I mean, they're one of the best sides in WSL, but the way Manchester United, and from my experience, the fans work is, what's the next step? So there's pressure there for Mark. He doesn't really show it, if I'm honest. And obviously there will be for Polly as well. So I think she knows the next step has to be something that is an upgrade on what they've got. And that's hard. Because A, it costs money. B, a lot of the players you probably can't upgrade on. I don't think you could get a better version of Anella Toon. I don't think you can get a better version of Ona. I don't think you can get a better version of Russo at the moment, in my personal opinion. So Manchester United in this window, in winter, I think if they were to spend money, they spend it on a specific player. I think they prefer the summer build. But Mark said, I think 3 times to me in a press conference, numerous times, this squad is not done. And if he's saying it's not done, that means he's got plans. And if he's got plans, I don't think he's looking at free transfers. I would like to know what he's dealing with. I'd like to know specifically, and I've asked him, but he won't tell me. I'd like to know specifically what he's looking at and the kind of budget that he has. There was conversation I had just with a Man United fan the other day when they were saying, do you think the takeover might be stolen things? And I've never thought about it that way, but I suppose it could do. Because he's saying, with regards to the contracts, these things take time. He's probably thinking the same with transfers, but, he said in press conferences to myself and Jamie Spencer, who I believe has been on the show as well, great guy, great. I'm sure you all follow him, but if you don't, you should. In reference to the way he works, I think he works a window in advance. So he'll have targets. He said he's got targets. He said that in a press conference to me, he has targets. He just hasn't given me names. And at the minute, it's guesswork and rumor work a little bit and trying to check with sources where they're going. But they will get players in this window. And I think they get the players they want that are going to be either adding to the squad, like an upgrade on what is underneath the first team, or to upgrade on the first team itself. you're going to have to spend money. And I think I'd like to think there's money there. I think the win over Arsenal was massive. I think prior to that, you could say, well, Man United have never really beaten XYZ in the top three. Now you can.
Yeah. And I mean, like you're saying, the money, and I mean, even Ten Hag, I think he's a bit more, in a press conference, he'll just sort of say it, and he sort of said, I've spoken to Richard, there's more money there. And I don't think that's just for him. I think that will be across the board kind of thing. And when the takeover does happen, I do expect there will be more money. I mean, Lanzell, he's a guy who's commenting a lot, and me and him have had chats about where it can go. And I do expect this, whatever happens, I know they're not calling it a full sale, but I expect it to be a full sale. There'll be money. But I think that even if they weren't at that point, I feel like Man United now is at a point where they can't keep saying, "Oh yeah, we're investing, we have ambitions," and not pay money. To be honest, I think everyone's paying money now, and maybe at the start you could get away with free transfers, and they got great free transfers, but the free transfers, not saying they need to be over, because you can still get great free transfers. There's one I want to talk about in a bit, but I think free transfers, if you want a player like we just talked about with Rijek, you have to pay for her. She's in the last year. There'll be some kind of money that has to move there, and this is what you want to see. This is what is going to lead to growth, money moving hands. And yes, it might be Man United giving it to Akin, and Man United maybe not getting it back on Leslie or an Honour, but the more you give, the more it'll move, And I just think we need to look at it. We want to sort of break even, but I mean, even Vix has said here, we got 130k for Jackie. What, that shouldn't be, looking to cover Mayor. It should be looking to be spent. And, that's what I've always said. You talked about budgets. But for me, when Emma Sanders, I don't know how well you know her, but she's someone who obviously was brought on before, come on this show before. I've got very, I'd say that she's a friend of mine, but she sort of said it's the fifth biggest budget, and we're talking about obviously the top three, but Spurs are spending money, Everton are spending money, Brighton putting a lot of money into their training ground, and then maybe so it's Man United need to, I suppose, and maybe with the Glazers going, that will happen, loosen up the purse string for the women's team, and hopefully it's not just a start, and we'll see this money moving, and he's getting back because he needs to be backed. I mean, what's your thoughts on it before we get onto names that I'm seeing?
I think what's really interesting about something I hadn't really thought about, and I was just speaking about it sort of with a few friends the other day. What must be the most frustrating thing about this project and thinking a window in advance is Marc's contract's not sorted yet. We don't really know what's going to happen with Marc at the end of the season. No one's asked him. It only occurred to me that it is, I think, running out at the end of the season. And it's a contract that most people haven't looked at. And if you're building a project and with Marc, what Marc's doing, is that project going to be 6 months from the hierarchy? And, forget the takeover for a minute. They're looking, saying, if we get in the Champions League, then things change, which means that are they banking on this squad to get into the Champions League and then hoping getting in the Champions League can convince Leslie, can convince Owner to stay? Obviously, you've got Hayley Ladd to get tied down yet, but I think that'll be fine. That's an extension.
There's Millie as well.
Yeah, of course.
She's not got an extension, so what are they doing?
Millie doesn't have an extension. I think Hannah, out of the players that I think would stay or are really important in terms of first team every single week, Hannah, Mary, and Hannah and Mary both have extensions that you can put on that as well. You have an extension on Hayley Ladd. I think in terms of extension that you don't have, obviously the players we've mentioned. It's a kind of a weird time, because come the end of the season, if you don't get in the Champions League, does that mean Marc then goes because he hasn't got the Champions League and the hierarchy unhappy? Does that mean then Owner then goes? Does that mean then Leslie goes because they want to play in the Champions League? And then you have to start building again. So I don't think anyone would want that at the hierarchy. I don't think anyone want that in the team. I don't think Marc would want that. The fans certainly don't want that. So for me, it would seem like if they want to spend money on a player they actually want, that would maybe improve the first team. I think it's probably money worth spending. I don't think they're going to be skint, and I know the takeover is going to be causing issues. But fifth highest budget in the league, you should be able to attract someone based on how they've played the start of the season, the players that are in that team. There'll be players that are wanting to play with Ona, Ella, Leslie. There'll be players that want to play with them now. And Manchester United is also a massive machine from a player perspective. I mean, those 3 players I mentioned there are sellable assets outside of what they do in the football field. They sell shirts. They sell, they're the poster girls, 2 of them, for English football, English women's football. So there's also investment there as well. So the stuff I feel, if they guaranteed Champions League this season, then you're talking keeping Leslie. I think you'd keep potentially Ona as well. You'll keep all the other players you mentioned that have extensions anyway. I think if you add to it with a lot of quality and spend a bit of money, and there's someone on the player that you actually want that'll improve it, come the end of the season, you've got not just a Champions League team, you've got a team that could really push for the title. And I think that's the DNA of Manchester United, isn't it? From the outside looking in, that's been the DNA of Manchester United since I've been about 7. So I imagine you feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we should be doing. I mean, for me, I think Polly's going to be doing a lot of the recruitment. Not saying that he won't have an impact, but I do think that that's what she's been brought in for. And I feel like she, like you say, he was planning a window in advance. But I do think, and I heard about Hannah Vajek in the summer. So in terms of window in advance, yeah, I do think that is the case. But, Vicky's saying here, he does have an option. And I feel like if they do finish in the top 3, that'll get triggered. And then maybe they'll negotiate something. But in a way, I do think Lanzell sort of said Champions League or bust. So I do think he will go if it's not. Because I just think, that's where we're at. In terms of what you just said, in terms of like adding to the squad and the players, and for me, it's always been you've got the players here, and it's about getting the players above it, and then getting better players will then push your already first team players into squad players, if you get what I mean. And that for me is how you build it. I don't think you build it by just thinking of a player who maybe can't break past Tooney or whatever. I think you should be looking to get someone who's probably a bit more experienced than Tooney, and a name that, as I've mentioned to you before, Graham, and seen little people have heard things at NWSL chat, a name's been linked to us. I think it's very low-level links, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. I feel like Maya was low-level links, and then boom, she was there, and it had been done long before we know. But we know that this player is out of contract in the NWSL. And guys, tell me what you think of it. Dabinia, I don't know if you know much or heard much. I've asked around. I've only heard, like I said, through little chats, people in the NWSL that are saying all NWSL clubs are after her. Arsenal are after her. But I know that you had the exclusive on Palova was her name. So, that's them maybe covered. I'm not saying that they're not going to carry on looking. But for me, that would just... You're talking about winning the league. That's a player that you think of, bang, big player, scores goals, Brazilian, all this kind of stuff. And, I've seen these videos. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's where I think you see your squad improving. That's where I think you challenge for the league if you get in a Dabinia kind of player. Vicky's talking about when we had Preston Heath and all that kind of stuff. That was amazing. And for me, that's already a ready-made world-class player. I mean, what do you know about a player like that? Is there a link to United? Like I said, I've only heard it tentatively.
So in terms of, you touched on Palova there before. So I heard about Palova about a fortnight ago, give or take. And the way, I don't know if everyone works the same way, but it's the way I like to work is you get one bit of information, then you check with another 2 people, see how solid that is. At the moment, I don't have any more than one really small tentative link on Dabinia. Outside of that, I probably haven't pushed as much, where I've heard 1 or 2 from an Arsenal perspective, not gone on to 2.5. This is really me talking like in riddles here, but basically I haven't heard as much as, say, like the Palova move, for example. I heard that approximately 2 weeks ago. It took me a good 2 weeks to get some solid information on it, and then eventually it went from having 3 people, 4 people, then eventually it turned into 5 people saying the same thing from different angles, so you felt a bit safer in kind of announcing that and saying that was a move. In reference to Dabinia, I've heard more for Arsenal, less for United, but I can't say I haven't heard one person mention that there might be some interest, but I think she's got a bit of interest. I believe she will be available on a free, as far as I'm aware. If I think Manchester United should be looking at that, 100%. Because yes, Tooney's your number one there, but there's no harm, like you said, in getting someone to at least push her that's of equal quality or a bit more experience or can offer something different. For me as well, I think I touched on Leslie before. Leslie's great, and I'm obviously live in Scotland, so I love Martha Thomas, but I do think there's a difference in quality there. I do think you lose a little bit, and that's not to say Martha Thomas is not good. She's very good, and has been for a number of years, and I'm a big fan of her for maybe biased reasons, but Russo is something that's completely different to her, and world class in my opinion. World class is Russo. Whereas with Ella Toon, if you brought in Dabinia, you're talking about a player that could be at least on a level enough for something a bit different. I think it's a good market to go into. I think for loads of obvious reasons. I think it's cost efficient. I mean, talking wages, I don't necessarily know. Obviously, she's 31, I think. So she'll want a level of a decent contract, but I don't think it's going to be anything extortionate. I think it'll mainly come down to who she fancies going to the most. But for me, like I said before, that win over Arsenal's massive. It's an absolutely enormous win because it flips what people thought Manchester United were. You could have won the first 10 games and, forget you'd played Chelsea. Let's forget that. Say you'd won the first 10 games, but none of them were against a top 3 team. Then potentially what you're looking at is people going, oh, well, yeah, Man United has done that before. But now you can say, oh, well, Man United have actually beat Arsenal. We've done Arsenal. So there's no reason why we can't do it in that second half of the season. So people are now starting to look and go, well, can Man United get top 3? They're starting to look and go, well, can Man United maybe get top 2? Could they even push for the title sooner rather than later? That one win was so big. I think it gives you a bit more of a helping hand in the window. For Dabinia, I haven't heard enough to say that I think they're definitely after her. If I'm completely not honest with you. Same with Arsenal. I must be honest. I like to get at least 3 people telling me information from 3 different places where they don't know each other, which can be difficult. And that takes time. I haven't heard enough for me to say that there's definitely an interest. But if I'm talking from a perspective of my own opinion, I think if Man United aren't interested, then they should be. I've done that before.
Yeah, for me, we definitely. I mean, we were just talking, weren't we, at the start about Justine and Sarah May. They're good players. Like you say, the numbers in the WSL are good, but even if we did get a Sarah Malin, and these aren't the kind of players that are gonna push you on to Champions League or, like you say, top 2. I think that's an option there now because I feel like the win over Arsenal. For me, I was disappointed at City. I think we should have seen that out, cleaned them up, finished them off. We were on top. And I just think that Dabinia, she adds that, she can do that. And that's the sort of level then that shows this is where we want to be. And for me, you have to be doing it. You have to be, like you said, if we're not in for it, why not? Because
you
have to be spending that money now. We want to be in Champions League. And this is a player that then, like you say, pushes that, cements that top 2 kind of top 3 thing. It shouldn't be looking at 3. We should be looking at 2, 1 kind of thing. And then if you get 3, okay.
Why not? You weren't complete. I know Chelsea was disappointing. Chelsea have a ridiculous amount of numbers in the squad that are just quality, and it's really hard to get near it. But I thought for 60 minutes it was fine. And I know fine's not where you want to be, but there is certain, you can't just beat everyone in one season. I thought Arsenal, first half, far the better side. A little bit unlucky with a deflected goal that obviously went in, and obviously then everything ended up where you win in the best possible way. I agree with you in City. I thought the goal came from almost nothing and got their tails up a little bit, as it does in a derby. I thought for 60 minutes you were very, very comfortable. So for me, there's no reason why, especially with Arsenal having Champions League at the moment, which is extra games, extra minutes in the legs, there's no reason you can't be looking at second. And then if you get second, if you think in second, why not think first? Yeah. It's going to be tough. Chelsea are a great team and they've got so many numbers. But if you beat Arsenal, that indicates that you're in a space where you can beat a side like that. Why can't you beat that side in the league? And that's what I would be saying to people in the transfer window. And I also think it's funny when you're looking at, you have a plan 6 months in advance and you think, where will we be in 6 months? And Mark strikes me as a person who will probably think, where do I want to be in 6 months? Is he ahead of where he wants to be? I don't know. Maybe he's really confident and ambitious, but I would say, me personally, Manchester United are probably slightly ahead of maybe where they expected to be in terms of the win over Arsenal. The only one defeat, a little bit of an unlucky one in some ways. And the Man City game, if City don't score, I think you're comfortably going to win 2-0. So there's frustrations there, and I think the standards are very high. But are you slightly ahead of where you thought you might be at this point? Yeah, maybe. And therefore, do your aspirations change for what your 6-month planning was? I don't know. I think Mark's probably more along the lines of he's where they expect it to be, because I think he'll have that plan. But it'll be interesting to ask him that question if he's ahead of where he expects the team to be at this time.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Vicky's saying here, Arsenal lost 2 players that scored and assisted 60%, 66% of their goals. And yeah, but I want to do it, Graham. I don't want to look at what Arsenal. It is that, and it does give you that. Oh well, obviously no one ever wishes an ACL on anyone, but it does give you that feeling like, you know, these are them key players for them, and they're losing them, and you know, is it going to make them then push harder for players? Obviously, of course it is. And
they have pull. Arsenal have pull. They've got Champions League football already, which we've talked about the pull of that. But for me, I agree with you. Look after your own business. People will do what they will do. You can only control. It's a cliche. It's a cliche in life. It's a cliche in football. But control your controllables, and everything else will work out.
Yeah, I mean, Nishad has put a comment here, and I'm going to pull it up. So it's about Dabinia. She can play deep like an 8. Someone said not a 6, but an 8. And that's where we need at the moment. We haven't replaced Jackie, even though Vilda is there. And I suppose it comes into what I wanted to talk to you about, and definitely touch on Vilda. Vilda is a player, for me, I think that should be playing more. I'd like to see her play more. Obviously, she's not. But for me, I've heard of Vilda as being a player that they may be looking to move on. I mean, she's even made comments about I need to play kind of thing. So I've heard that she might have been offered to other teams, you know, this kind of thing. I mean, just do you want to talk about Vilda and maybe some other players? Because I've heard of 3, and I think you talked of the 2 others, didn't we? So I'll let you say maybe of the outs that might be.
Again, it's nothing solid, and I'll go through each one that I've got here, and we'll talk first on Vilda. I think Vilda's a great player. I think she's probably been a little bit unlucky that I think not recently Nikita Paris has been a bit off form, but she's probably done enough to keep in the side at the point. Ella's really difficult to replace because I think she's just pivotal. You could play her in that 6 or that 8, potentially if you wanted to. I think our best position is probably around the 10. I think she's. I was at the Durham game. Obviously, I watched the Everton game from home as well. You can see what she brings. You can see the quality she's got, and she's got so much room to grow as well because she's still like relatively young. I think, and I don't know this, but I think Mark's struggling to find a way to fit her in. There's numerous times when Jamie's asked about her, and the answer's always been how much he rates her, how much he believes in her. And I think he does. I really think he does. I just think he's struggling to find a place to put her in. And I think for someone like Vilda, she's thinking, well, why am I not getting in? When I'm getting in, I'm scoring goals. I think if she had another year on a contract, it might be all right. You might be able to swing that round. But I think, and this is just me thinking out loud as opposed to anything I know, because I've got to be honest and say I've heard nothing in terms of her leaving, but she's got 6 months left on a contract and she's not playing games. I'm sure she's relatively young, in my opinion. In terms of reaching a peak age, she doesn't want to be kicking her heels and getting frustrated. I think, me personally, and this is me just thinking that box again, nothing I know. If I'm Vilda, I'm thinking, well, I think she scored 3 in 3 in the Conti Cup. So when she's been given the chance, she's shown up. She was the best player on the pitch for Man United at Durham, which was a relatively difficult night. And I know the championship team, but like you could see her quality was above what else was on the pitch for Man United that night. She's not playing games. She's not playing enough games for the age that she's at. If you're her agent, going back to agents before, you're going to say, yeah, sign a contract there because, big club, great. That agent's going to be saying, look at your options. And she's going to be saying, well, am I going to play? And Mark's going to go, well, I want you to play, but I can't play you because I trust X, Y, and Z. And then if he puts her in, who else is he going to make unhappy? And then unhappy dressing room. And there's so many like domino effects falling into place here. For me, I think Vilda's a player that, from what Mark said in press conferences and what Jamie's obviously mentioned previously, I think on 90 minutes, I think he wants to keep Vilda. That's the echoes that I'm getting from what he says to us, and I think he's quite honest, even though he can speak in riddles almost. I really get on with him. He does give you an answer to everything, and he does give you good information. But Vilda's come out in the press and made it pretty clear she's not happy that she's not playing. That, from a player perspective, is kind of, and again, I don't know Vilda, but to me, when a player comes out in the press and talks about not playing games and being relatively unhappy, even if it's tentative, that's a last straw for a player, I think. Because I've got to go to the press, I've spoke to the manager, I've done this, that, and the other. When a player goes to the press, that indicates to me that's their final option. And it's obviously something where maybe the agent said mention it, let people know you might be available. I don't know. I'm kind of just trying to think outside the box and think how this might work. I don't think she'll stay. I don't have any information of her going, but I don't think she'll stay. And
I mean, I don't have information, but I know that
you can read the line.
I suppose it's information. I suppose it is information. It's not information from multiple people like you, Jamie, but it is Graham. Well, it is
not quite as good looking as Jamie.
It is information. That's I get information, and Vilda, like you say, she's come out in the press. She said what she said, and I know what you're saying about he does rate her, but
you can read between the lines. She's not happy. That's the thing. It's almost like
I wonder if he does rate her. I just think it was all this talk and Vilda and Jackie in the can't, and he plays, and and I just feel like even in the Conti Cup, Zellum comes on, and I just feel like there's. I just think, I don't know. I think he's not her player. I think he was given to her. He was a player that was signed by Casey and given to him. Everywhere we dress it up, we know that managers want their sort of home players, and unfortunately, I think if she was here, and Casey was here, she'd be playing more. And I think that she was obviously made promises by Casey to come. She came, and Casey wasn't there. Obviously, she wants to play for Man United. She's a Man United fan. She talks about her favourite times being at Old Trafford and all that kind of stuff. So it is hard when you hear it, but I do think this is where I then think, is that Dabinia stronger? Because Vilda is one that I've heard could be on the way out. Stanley is also another one. So there's two midfielders that, in the last years, I think Vilda does have an option.
I believe I believe she does. I'd have to check. This is terrible. I'd have to check my own article on that, but I'm pretty sure she does. Whereas you're such an Stanley there. Again, I really rate Lucy Stan. To people who don't know, I'm a Sunderland fan, so there's a little bit of biasness in that. And Stan was one of the first players that I ever seen play. I think she's a great footballer. And by all means, she was on the verge of being in the Euros squad, but she's just not playing. I think the last time I've seen her play from memory in terms of from the start was the Brighton game. Yeah. And that feels like a long time ago. And so I think Stan is 31. You don't want to be sitting on the bench at 31. You want to be playing games. She's played at a high level in the WSL. She's been valued for a long, long time. She's gone to Man United. It's done all right. Do I see her getting past Hayley Ladd and Katie Zellum in midfield? No, I don't.
I mean, John saying, I don't think she'd go. I think she can still cut it in a WSL, Stanny. And I feel like there will be a club, Leicester. I know she might not want to go there, but.
Did she get married today, by the way? Congratulations.
Yeah, she did. And all the girls were there. And, she's a well-loved. I love Stanny. I love Thingy. But I think with Stanny, she was playing a lot, wasn't she? And then she gets injured. Playing a lot the first year, gets injured. So I feel like if she'd not had those injuries, maybe we would be here. And I feel like maybe I think it was a bit strange the 1 year, but it is what it is. Whether they're just keeping her because you need that squad. But
she's a top class experienced option in the kind of. I prefer it deeper. I prefer in the kind of the role that she's playing against Brighton. I think she played there the first couple of times I've seen her for Birmingham. I think she's a great passer of the ball. I think she's very calm under pressure. I think she can dictate play very well. And if you want someone in your team that's a really solid backup that can do that, if Katie gets injured or Hayley gets injured, she's perfect. But is she going to be happy with that? Yeah, she's 30, 31, yeah. And she's going to want to play football. She doesn't want, if she's been on the cusp of a Euros squad, and yes, I know she missed out, as did Katie, she's going to think she can still get back into that squad if she was in 6 months ago, nearly in the European Championship winning squad. And yeah, she might not play that many games, but she was nearly in the squad. She was in the preliminary, I can't even say it. But in reference to her career and her own mind, she's a confident girl. She's always been confident from what you can tell from the outside looking in. She wants to play minutes. And I think she could do WSL. But like John says, if she wants to come back to Sunderland, I'd be more than comfortable with that. But I get the feeling that she might still fancy WSL.
Yeah, and I think it's not a case. I think Amy sort of said, "Hey, let me find it." She only signed for 1 year, so I think she'll stay. And I don't think it'll be a case of we're kicking her out kind of thing. Because yeah, she has. I think it'll be a case of I want to leave, I want to go, I want to play. I mean, another one who's a bit strange for me, Jade Moore. I'm sure she's one who probably wants to play, who has talked about being in the Euros, and they're not playing. And I don't think Stanley will be saying, I don't think Mark will be saying, get out, there's your bags,
No, me neither.
Find a new club. But I think it will be a case of, I want to play. And like you say, I nearly played in the Euros, so what minutes are you going to give me? Where's my insurances? I mean, I can see a question, I'm going to come to it, but another one we talked about, isn't it? Who's probably looking at insurances. I want you to say the name, Graham, though, but what?
So again, I've heard that, again, this is not as firmed up as I'd like it to be, but I think, and I to be honest, I could probably read between the lines, but Adriana Leon wants assurances. She's coming this summer. She's not played very much. She's had 10, 20 minutes here or there, a couple of games. I know it was against Sheffield United, who are a division below and haven't had the greatest of games, but you've seen kind of her instincts, and that first goal was quality. That was just sheer quality and instinct, no matter who that was against. It was a great goal. And you can see what she's got, but she's going to want assurances. And I've heard, again, not firmed up enough as I'd like it to be, but I don't think I need to firm it up too much, because I think it's probably obvious that she wants assurances. I think any player that's played the little amount of minutes that she's played after joining in the summer will want to play. Does that mean I think she'll leave? I doubt it. I very much doubt it. I think it's probably something, if she joined only 6 months ago, then she believed in a project and understood where her role played. She's a Marc player, because obviously she was signed by Marc, or at least the project that Marc is part of. But she's bound to be knocking on that door and asking. And I've heard similar to it. So, yeah, exactly. If you sign for a club and you don't play for 6 weeks, you're going to be like, well, hang on a minute, what you brought me in for?
Yeah. I mean, that's the name that I've talked about. We're talking about Stanley was obviously re-signed. Jade Moore, signed, and she was signed into the project. And these are 3 players that I don't think they're, unhappy. I mean, another player I've heard and who saw and have heard that she might be going on loan is Grace. That's what I don't know if you've heard similar from that.
I actually asked Jamie about this the other day. Can you tell me and Jamie speak quite a bit? To be fair, he's great, and I'm sure you, like I say, you all follow him, but he's fantastic for Man United. He's like a fountain of knowledge. And someone asked me on Twitter the other day about that, and I pointed it towards Jamie, because I think he was in the press that day, and he said he spoke to him a few weeks ago, and she had an injury, and he was wondering if maybe they're just easing her back in. But I think, I don't know, for me, how long ago was that injury?
Yeah, for me, I heard she had that injury, but I mean, I'm going to be like you, Graham. 2 people have told me she's looking like it's a loan, and they're keeping her. Didn't want to get injured, so didn't play that Sheffield game. She said to me she's not injured, so obviously player will always say I'm ready to play, but if a player says I'm not injured,
the Sheffield United game made me go, well, where is she? That I'll admit, I looked and was like, all right. And I kind of, because she hadn't played for that long, I kind of forgot in the press conference before the game, because obviously we spoke about the players that would come in, like Alyssa and stuff like that, and obviously she played, and the players came in. But I mean, what's Grace, 19?
Yeah. I mean, it's disappointing, isn't it? There's 4 players that are his project players, and potentially they're not happy. I mean, I'm not saying they're not happy, they're unhappy, but does more need to be done? Does he need to be better with his rotation? Does he need to be a bit more honest? I mean, what do you think it is? Obviously, because you're saying 6 weeks and not playing, that's obviously not what she was. You're not going to play for 6 weeks. No one's going to say that. But, what do you think it is?
I think, and I'll make no secret of it, like I from my experience, I get on really well with Marc, and I think he's doing a really good job. And I really, really like him as a boss and as a coach. From my own experience, again, I'm not in any training rooms or dressing rooms or anything like that, and I'm not a Man United fan. I'll openly admit that. But in reference to why I think he's not given them minutes, I think it's probably as simply as he's lost one game in 10-11, and he thinks he's found his best team, and it's hard for him to fit other things in. And I'm only taking that from when he's been asked about Vilda. He looks at a pain to say, like, oh, she's not playing. She's not. I really rate her, and X, Y, and Z. Unless he's got a really good poker face, which, to be honest, one thing I quite like about Marc from a total journalistic perspective is that even when he doesn't want to really answer the question, because I'll be honest, I'll be the kind of person that'll go in with the transfer question, the contract question, and I'm the one who's going to hit the question off. I kind of take the bullet on that one. But he always gives me an answer, even if he can't give me a straight one about who he's interested in or what the contract discussions are. He'll always give me an answer because he knows that it's important that I know about it, and it's important that the fans know about it. And I felt like when he spoke about Vilda, he is at a pain to say, like, I really rate her. I do know she's a great player. Of course, I know she's a good player. But my team's settled. And I suppose when you're winning games, or at least when you're not getting beat, it's hard to change that team. But then you look at the Conti Cup games, and you're right. There's certain players that haven't played in the Conti Cup games, which are, and I know his mantra is that, you know, the games that are dead rubbers, quote unquote, are still important games because it shows a standard. Realistically, if they were that important, he'd play the full first 11 that he plays every single week, and he doesn't. So there is an option to bring certain players in. Grace was one you touched on before. Vilda's obviously played in the games, but I think she came off in one of them. Was it the Everton game, potentially? So there is little things where we're like, oh, right, okay. But I think it mainly comes down to Marc knows he's best 11, wants to continue with it until something tells him that it's broken. And I think that's probably quite unfortunate for other players. It's not a job I envy, because keeping good players like Vilda and young players like Grace happy whilst also trying to get results and maintain a level of expectation that's there at Manchester United must be bloody difficult. I'm pleased I'm on the other side of the fence asking them questions about it as opposed to having to deal with it, shall we say.
I mean, people are saying, you know, settled team is fine, Amy. But there's games when we're 2-3 up and he just delays the subs. And I think I even saw something on Twitter the other day that said 60th minute he'll do this, 70th minute he'll do that, and 90th minute he'll do this. And I just think I even had this conversation with fans, and if fans can sort of predict, I suppose, when he's going to make them subs, you think, what does everyone else think? I mean, here it is, around the 60th, 70th minute, he'll take a right winger off for Martha Thomas. 80th, Russo for Lucia. And then 80, 85, it'll be like Vilda or someone like that will come on. And it's just, I don't know. That's what fans, I think that's where the frustration of Skinner and the fans. And I feel like a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, we're winning, so why aren't you happy? And it's for me, as well as a fan, it's a bit more nuanced than just, oh, we're winning, so everything's great. It's, you know,
you've got to have nuance.
Shades of grey of a football club, you know. There's always little things that you pick up on, and
you've got to have nuance with everything. I think that's one thing that really lacks on Twitter. I think there's just literally no nuance. You either hate something or you love something. But I think where I would have really liked to see changes made for me, and I know I said before I didn't think Martha Thomas was a perfect option in place of like a Russo, for example, and obviously we've touched on Garcia. Garcia's a different player and also can play that position, but I think we've seen it with Martha Thomas when she came on against Man City. She almost won the game with that header. It was a fantastic save from Roebuck. Where I would maybe like to see the changes made is not in games that have already been won when the team's playing at half tempos, maybe in like games like Man City, where, you know, the Yeboah reset can maybe, you know, it's hard to say take Alatun off, but maybe someone like Alatun or Russo and be like, you know what, we're going to do something different, actually. If you think you're good enough to get in this team, show me why you should. Where it's 1-1, City are a bit on top because there's tails up, they've just scored. Go and show me why you should be in the team. That would have been interesting rather than bring them on with... Because it must be hard as a player coming on with 10, 15 minutes to go when you're 3-4-0 up and being like, right, I need to make a change here, because you've got like a lot of the players are just saying, don't make a mistake, keep the clean sheet. And I get that. It would have been interesting if he brought these players on maybe with, you know, 40 to 35 minutes to go against City, or a game where you need to win. I know he took Russo off against Chelsea, but that was more about I think he said in the press conference afterwards, I asked him and he said it was just because he has to protect her. I get that. But even like maybe changes a bit earlier in like the Chelsea game when they scored the 2 goals, go and show me why you should be in the team, get me back into that game. And I know they got one back and yada, yada. But just as an example, the games where you're maybe not coasting, which has been a few of, bring them on at that point and be like, well, show me why you should be in this team. Make that difference that the player that I brought you on for hasn't done. That's realistically what's going to put them in the frame for playing every week, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I mean, like you even say, like I think a lot of people are confused by the substitutions at Chelsea. I think saying here, Leon came on in the 87th minute. Obviously brought Stanley and Williams on before that, and I just think, are these the kind of players? Vilda is sitting there and he's saying he rates her. So, like you say, why don't you bring her on? I mean, Garcia made a difference against City, but only had 5 minutes.
I thought Garcia made a difference against City when she came on as well. And I think we talked about it at the Chelsea game. And obviously, this was prior to the Arsenal game, which, like I've said before, made a massive difference. But for me, the Chelsea game, the players Chelsea could bring on, you were just like, my God, you're so far ahead. Like, I think that was the game where Pernilla got injured. You've got Erin Cuthbert that can play right back, midfield, number 6, up front, wherever she wants. The strength that you have in Chelsea's team, and that's where Man United want to be. That's where Manchester United need to be. Do I think they're a million miles behind? No, not at all. But I suppose Emma Hayes seems to keep a lot of it's a better squad. I hope people don't mind me saying that. It is a better squad.
No.
And she seems to keep a lot of players injured. So just a devil's advocate, she keeps a lot of players in who are maybe not playing every week fit and happy and as part of the squad and manages to win a league. So I suppose there's an argument where you could say, well, why doesn't Marc? I'm sure he'll have an answer for that. But and again, I actually agree with Marc. But just to play devil's advocate and have a bit of nuance, which is important, how come Emma Hayes can keep a far stronger squad with a far stronger bench happy, but it seems that you can't? That would be a question I think is more than valid.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had there's a girl I want to bring on, Moyo. Me and her had that kind of chat in our DMs, and she's definitely going to come on this show. And she Gold Diggers podcast, go and check that out. Great people on there, and that's what she said. She said about like Reading, Chelsea made 5 changes. Doesn't mean that Emma Hayes doesn't rate Sam Kerr or anything like that. I mean, even love Tooney, but does she need to start versus Leicester? These kind of things, and I get where he's coming from. This is the winning team, but you need to know rotation is key, and people need to know that just because he drops Tooney doesn't mean he doesn't like Tooney, or he needs to be able to say to Zellum or any kind of, I'm going to play Vilda this week. I'm going to play, I think Fergie did that brilliantly. He used to say, this isn't the game for you. And I feel like Emma does that. She maybe says to like a Beth England, that's one that I know was in your thing, but how is she staying there? Is she saying, today versus Man United isn't for you, but down the line in December, I'm going to need you against Reading, against this, against that, and you'll come on and you'll play in the Conti Cup quarter-final versus Spurs. These kind of things, and I just think he needs to be a bit more better at that. I don't think, we're seeing the best in that respect. I mean, Vicky said a point here. It is worrying a bit. We're talking about players like Lessie, Tooney, Honor being world class. I mean, see the difference where he didn't have Honor. But he talked about having squad depth and needing squad depth, but then we don't really see it in play, only in the Conti Cup.
And they're coming in. There's a difference when a player comes into a team and they haven't played for 6 games. Using Leon as an example, you haven't played for 6 games. You're not match fit, and you're given like 20-30 minutes to make a difference. Again, I understand Marc's thinking. I really, really, really do. But I think it's really important. You said the word nuance before, probably my favorite word on the planet. It's really, really, really important that we look at the other options as well. And there's players kicking their heels there saying, I'm desperate to make, she came in the summer, Leon, for example. She believes that she can play in this team. She believes that she can do stuff. She's been told that she's going to play. Otherwise, why would she join? But then she's getting to a point where after like fairly soon in a Man United career, she's got 20 minutes after not playing for 6 weeks to make an impression. You can't really do that. So maybe, again, devil's advocate, flip side of that, your Leicesters, your games where, you know, you can maybe give your tunes a rest. You can maybe, and I know they've got this month to rest, but like, I think players are adjusting to playing more top class football, especially WSL, and training all the time. And, you know, the media duties are going to be annoying for people. That's going to burn people out as well. So they're going to have that 1 month rest. I think maybe a couple of games where you could maybe put Russo on the bench, Toon on the bench, bring these other players in, keep them happy, say, you know, go make a difference, is a valid point. And I don't think it would be the stupidest option on the planet. But I think Marc's answer would be, I want to play my starting 11 every single week. And he said to me a few times, and he said in press conferences a few times, he doesn't want to give people a chance. He wants them to earn it. In the case of Vilda, I think she maybe has, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's, like you say, he said that in a press conference. And I think Vilda said after... I think Vilda said after she scored her brace against Everton, like, everyone deserves to be here or something, because he says you have to deserve to be here. And I think that was kind of a bit of a, I mean, if you looked at it side by side, a bit of a snapback because she used his words back. It is, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's a hard one, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
while we're winning, everyone's going to be like, Marc. And then as soon as he doesn't go right, people ask questions. I think the time when I think a lot of people were shocked when people were asking questions is when we just beat Leicester back 1-0. And there was a lot of criticism that day. But for me, I think that was good because, yes, look at Chelsea. They won like 11-0 versus, you know, and that's the difference. And that's the standards being raised, I suppose, and the standard that we should be at.
Absolutely. And I think one thing Manchester United fans in general will have, based on what their men's team have done, is an understanding of the standards that exist within the club. And I don't think Man United fans are unrealistic, not at all, like far from. I think actually really realistic, if I'm honest. But I think they want to see that progress happen a bit sooner. And I think you can tell me more on this, but there's a feeling from me coming in. I've only covered the club fully and watched almost every game this season. But there's a feeling for me that Man United fans feel like maybe if Casey Stoney was there, they might have been a bit further on.
Yeah, it's hard because I feel like, I mean, there's something here I wanted to come back to, and someone said, would different players still be there? Let me just try and find it. Oh, sorry. This one. But if Casey was around, would Zellum still be there? Would she still be captain? It's something that, you know, people are saying Zellum was due to leave, only given a 1-year deal with no manager in place. That's something that I've heard a few times from different people. And, you know, obviously she's brought Vilda in for thing. I think we definitely would have seen more of Vilda. I think we would have seen.
I think if Casey was there, one thing I would say is I think that Marc has made certain players a lot better than they were. And she's top of my list. For me, she's pivotal to what Manchester United play. Like, I know football's not all about stats. Like, I'm 36, so like I'm past that XG stuff. Like, I'm just like, have they played well? Have they not? Whatever. Like, I'm just going to go with that. But statistically, she does win the ball an awful lot in the sort of the final third and like late on to the second and the third parts of the field. And let's be honest, we know the way Marc is. We know the way that he speaks. He'll be looking at statistics like that. And you cannot say that whether you agree with statistics or whether you think about other stuff, you can't disagree with the fact that Marc's made Katie a much better player. For me, she's now a regular in the England squad, and deservedly so. So you could say, I agree. I think Casey would have played Vilda a lot more because of, well, I don't need to go into it. We know the reasons behind it. It's pretty obvious. But I do think, to be fair to Marc, he's made Katie and a few other players much better than they were prior to him coming in, which is a big benefit, which probably is one thing Marc doesn't get praised enough for my liking.
Yeah, oh no, I definitely think that. I mean, even one that we did talk about before, Maria, I think she's playing a lot better. I think there's a lot of players that play a lot better. Tooney, well, we didn't see much of Leslie under Casey in front of me. But, you know, I do agree with what Amy's saying here. There are issues with Casey as well. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's issues. I think no one's perfect, and that's what I think.
And I think hindsight's a really wonderful thing, but sometimes at the same time, you can look back. Even me as a football fan, I'll look back at certain times, and I loved Roy Keane. I'm sure I can say that name on this channel. loved him as a manager, and he was almost came back to us last year, and I was like, oh, Roy Keane, love him, amazing. I forgot the fact that we lost 7 of his last 8 games when he left the club and walked out on us and all that kind of stuff. I think you forget stuff, and I agree that I think sometimes you do have rose-tinted glasses. Man United didn't win the league or get close to winning the league with Casey in charge, so yeah, it was further back in the project, but they're closer than they've ever been at the moment, at the time of speaking with Marc. And I suppose ultimately, even going back, it doesn't bear any fruit, does it? Going back and thinking about the past, maybe you can learn from mistakes, but ultimately it's Marc that's got the job now, and it's Marc that picks the team. It's Marc that's going to be tasked with getting in the Champions League or winning the league this season. And for what it's worth, I think you'll do it. I think you'll do Champions League. I think you'll be more than safe. But I hope, touch wood, I'm not saying that and jinxing you this season. So if you don't, it's my fault. I've jinxed it.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose that Ricky's saying his staff, obviously he's promoted Charlotte Healy. Martin looks to be doing a lot more, and I think Martin's a key component as well. And then obviously Carl, and I think Ibs is the physiotherapist guy who does a lot of stuff. So I think that the team around is more, how can I say, more involved maybe under Marc than under, because I think he does delegate a lot more than perhaps Casey did. That's not me slagging off Casey or anything. I'm just saying that's the difference. Yeah, I mean, guys, if you want to get in the comments and ask any more questions, but I think we have touched on a lot. Graham, is there anything that you one final thing? Because here we're out here saying different things, even if it's just I've heard this one little thing. I know I get what you're saying about how you like to have it covered up, but like we like to work on just one little sources things. So anything that you might hear or you think, oh, they could, but it's light rumors, Yeah, my guy, anyone.
I think I've given everything I've got, which might get me in trouble, but there you go. But one thing I would like to say is, obviously, like I said before, I've been covering the club since about September, and honestly, like I've really, really enjoyed interacting with the Man United fans, and massively, massively appreciate them interacting with me, chatting to me. I've been really super impressed by. As a men's football fan, I've always been impressed by like the strong Man United fan base that you get at the men's games. They're always loud, and you know for a fact they've gone to every game because it's hard to get tickets from Man United at home, let alone away. But the away fans have been fantastic, and I think I wrote an article on Ella not long ago when we spoke after the Man City game, and she was saying how massive the fans were. And I'm not saying this to garner favour. I'd be honest if I didn't think this, but I think from what I've seen, it's been the best fans of WSL for making noise, getting behind them, being almost. I love your away ends. Really loved the away end at Arsenal. I loved the away end at Man City, and for me, the Russo goal against Arsenal, not just because I've covered Man United this season, because I've also covered City, but that's been like the moment of the season for me, because it was just like, and I don't use the word normal, but it was like a normal game of football. She ran over at the away fans, celebrated the last minute winner. Usual going mental. Tooney's giving it, as she said, beans. And that was just brilliant. And honestly, it's been great to interact with people online. And it's been even nicer that people think I add any value towards covering your club. And you, Nat, have been a massive, obviously, supporter of that. So just anyone who's interacted, good or bad, thanks for doing it. And thanks for letting me cover, obviously, a fantastic club that I think is going to go on and have a fantastic couple of seasons. And hopefully I'll be there with you.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, isn't it? I think we've had debates on here. I think from day one, we've always been advocates, and I don't think you'll find, whether it's people in Manchester or people in London or anyone, I don't think you'll ever find a United fan that says no to an away end. I think even people watching on telly 100 million miles away will say that, yes, Man United need that when we go anywhere, it needs to be done. And I think we're seeing now a bigger push from not just Man United, but from everyone. People are saying that thing, and I've just think that Russo goal, like you say, the celebration at the end, that is what should tip it for it to be a normal, like you say, normal thing. And
football's about, isn't
it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, red versus blue, Arsenal versus United, Man United. It's what it's about. Yeah, like you say.
100%.
Just one last little thing. Someone saying any big deals for any other clubs that you know of? Obviously, I know you said the Pullover thing, but
outside of Pullover, No, nothing that I've came across as yet. Obviously there was the link to Janine Becky. She came out and said that's not happening. There's reasons behind that. I won't go too into it. To be fair to her, it's not happening, so there's no point. Pullover, as far as I'm aware, is pretty much rubber stamps. If not, I'm going to look like a right idiot. But like I say, I've had 5 or 6 people confirm that, and it took a few weeks to do so. Not as far as I'm aware, but do I think it's going to be a quiet January for the top clubs? No. Maybe Man City. I don't think City will do much. I think Gareth Bale's quite happy with what he's got there. I think someone asked me the other day how many deals I think Man United will do. I think 2. I think there'll be 2. I think Arsenal will do 2, including that pullover deal. Okay. Chelsea need to give someone a chance, so don't sign anyone yet. Make it a bit more of an interesting title race, because if they sign any more world-class players, they're just taking the mick. So,
yeah. 2. You think Arsenal 2 plus pullover, or so 2 overall or 3?
2 overall, I think, because I don't think Arsenal were in the market for necessarily, because obviously they were linked to Brune, and I believe that she might still be on the list, but I think that there's other people moved higher up on that list since. And again, I think that might have been an agent potentially looking to bring her back to her contract's up in 6 months. But for me, I think Miedemar's injury is, well, Jonas said it's going to force him into the transfer market. I believe that Pullover's one of them. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, I've got to have words with some people. I think they might look to push someone like a Debinha through, or someone of similar ilk. I think Manchester United will make a fullback signing, and I think they might, not that I know this, but I think they might make a surprise signing as well and try and secure and solidify that Champions League spot, be it 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, hopefully that Debinha is for us. Who knows? But anyway, listen, Arsenal way was the best, but Vicky's saying thank you, keep us posted. Yep, anything, any little thing, even if it's a one source thing, we're still all over it. Don't worry, yeah.
No, like I say, thank you for.
I don't think she'll go until summer as well, but then obviously it's open market and she does.
I think,
Brunny's one that we love anyway.
Yeah, I got a lot of because obviously I posted that was interest. I think it's a few weeks on. I don't think it's as strong as the interest is in other players. So maybe end of the season we might see him move elsewhere as well. But I believe Pullover is an Arsenal fan. I've heard that as well, and obviously the Dutch connection. We all know what it's like and stuff like that. So, but fingers crossed. I'm going to be at Manchester United this season and Man City. So I know you won't like me saying this about the Blues side, but hopefully one of you push and do something this season so I can have something fun to cover on. But again, like people saying thanks to me for coming on and keeping you updated. Thanks to you for caring. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of people cover Man United, so there's no reason for you to have any interest in me covering it. So thanks for appreciating the fact that I do, and I really appreciate people interacting and letting me come on shows like yourself, Nat, and I appreciate your support massively.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Comment after, get in the comments. You know, if you're watching later, we're always here to talk. All right, guys. See you soon. More content. Transfer season kicking off. Love it.